Hello, this is Mr. McMurray, and I'm going to try to start doing this for each of the labs. Like I said, be patient with the labs. Remember, first of all, they don't count a lot of your grade this year because we are experimenting with them and trying to use them for the first time. And I didn't really have a lot of heads up on which ones we were going to do and things like that. So we're kind of learning as we go. So be patient. We're getting this together. But I think it'll be useful if I get a video that kind of explains how to use each one. The problem is each one's a little bit different, has a little bit different tools and they're also someone else's labs. In a perfect world, I would go back and redo it from scratch myself, so it makes sure it covers exactly what I want it to cover. But that's a perfect world, and we don't live in a perfect world, so we're going to deal with it. All right. Ironically, I think that the labs from here on out will be more self-explanatory, but anyhow, I think this will probably help. And I will post this in the announcements each week, and so that you can see that. I don't know how to post it on the actual assignment. It would be nice if I could, but I'm not really sure that's possible since it's in Pivot and not Canvas. All right, so let's get started. This one is about pendulums, harmonic motion. Harmonic motion is just a vibration or repeating action over and over, which we'll talk about when we talk about sound waves and light waves and a bunch of other things. It's a repeating pattern. Okay. And we're going to talk about pendulums. Now, you may have done pendulums before, so it may not be totally new to you, but let's just go over a little bit how it's going to work here. Okay. Basically, we want to know what affects the period of a pendulum. The period, and that's very definite, we need to define that first. A period is the distance it takes for it to go all the way across one time and come back. Okay. That would be one period. All right, then it's going to go another one, and so forth, and it would keep doing that. Okay, now I paused it, but it would keep going back and forth. Now, there's two ways you can measure the periods. You can either let it go for a certain length of time and count how many there are, or you can just count the amount of time it takes for it to do one period. Okay, I would recommend that because it's shorter. And obviously, if it takes less time, then it's going to do more of them in a given length of time. But it's totally up to you. But just remember, a period is a repeating pattern, and so an harmonic motion is a repeating pattern. So basically, when it goes over here and comes back, okay, or like a wave that goes up, it comes back down, and then goes back up, start going back up again. That's one wavelength. Well, that's kind of the same thing here. We have from here, it goes over and comes back. When it starts to repeat and go back across again, like this, then that would be the next period. So a period is just a repeating pattern that occurs every so often. Okay, um, so that's basically what we're going to do. Now, what we want to investigate are three things. Does the length of the string affect the period? Does it go faster or slower based on the period? How does the mass affect the period? Does it go faster or slower depending on how heavy the weight is at the bottom, which is a good question. And finally, release angle. Does it matter how far we pick it up before we let it go each time? Okay, also a fair question. All right. All right. So here we go. Let's talk about how we're going to do this. To do this, first of all, we need to go down here where it says change. Okay, and we can pick which one we want to test first. I'm going to put mass right here, and we're going to click up here where it says independent variable. Okay, let me just clear it for a second. Now, when you do that, it will show a release angle already kind of preset and an independent variable reset. Even though they're kind of highlighted, you must click on those to choose those, and then you can check your mass that you want to use. Okay, if you don't check all three of them, I found out, guess what? It doesn't work. Okay, so you have to actually choose them, even though they're telling you which ones to choose. And then hit change, and it should load that information in here. Okay, so you have that video. Now, down here on your data chart, you're going to have to measure. I would put the independent variable mass first, and the units are grams. All right. Now, the second one, the dependent variable, or what we're trying to change by this, is the period. Now, it could be the number of periods if you were going to count that, and you could just put period here and then number down here. I'm going to do it with a time of one period, and I'm going to put seconds down here. Okay, so that's how I'm going to do it. It's up to you how you would like to do that. Okay, now we already know that the mass is, for the first one, is 66.8. All right. All right, and now we're going to do our measurements. Now, our measurements, once again, we go to our tool thing as usual, Now there is a ruler, but the ruler is primarily going to be for when you're measuring length. So when you're measuring the length of the string, then you will need that. But for this one, that's not going to be important. We need the protractor. Okay, now the protractor you need to set so that the little crosshairs right there and the little dot should be right there on where the fulcrum or where the pendulum is attached. We're going to line that up there. Okay, now notice we have a 0 here, so we can measure how many degrees this direction. There's 5, 10, 15. You can see how those go, 5, 10, 15 this direction. So you can measure on whichever side, just for the heads up. It should be the same on both sides when it does its pendulum. Okay, now we don't really need that for this first one particularly because we're worried about the mass. Okay, but when you do the release angle, this is where you can measure, so you can actually put how many degrees the release angle is. How far did they lift it up when they started? Okay, so like if I said start this over again, down here at the bottom, my release angle for this one would be, it looks like 5 degrees. Okay, but we're not doing the release angle, so we're not going to worry about that right now. In fact, I think we'll, I may just leave it there. That's okay. Now, we're mostly worried about right now then the time, because the mass has been set. We don't have to worry about it. All right, what I would do is, first of all, play this until you catch where it first lets go. About the time they release this little electric current here that probably has a little electromagnet hanging it on there. Okay, now it's hard to tell exactly where it starts, but okay, I'm gonna say right there. Okay, I highly recommend reset your time right there. So it's 0, so it's at 0. Okay, all right, and that's when it's about to let go. Okay, so now we're gonna play it, and we're going to let it go away. Half a period right there when it gets to 5 on the other side. And boom, somewhere right in there. And that looks actually pretty good. I don't think we're going to have to, we could go back a little bit to see when it actually first hits there, but yes, it definitely comes off there. So we're going to say right there, okay? I'm going to go with that. All right, so it took 1.35 seconds, and I would put that down here, okay? All right. Whoops, actually 135. That's not going to work. 0.35. Okay. Hmm. Well. Hmm. I don't know why it won't let me do that. 1.35. There we go. Okay. I don't know what I did wrong before. Okay. There we go. All right. Now you would need to go up and change things. This time you want to change it. Leave the length and release angle because we're just trying to investigate the one variable, so we don't want to change anything else. You could do all 5 of these. I would say do the first, the middle, and the last. Do at least 3 so you can get kind of a trend. But you know, it's up to you how many you want to do. If you want to be complete, you could do all 5. That's certainly all right with me. Okay, notice everything else is the same. The only thing difference is that. Okay, and then you're going to do that one. All right. And you would reset the timer, see how long it takes for it to go back, and so on. Okay, all right, I think we can figure that out now. So that basically is it. Now, once you have done that, and you filled out at least 3 of these, if you want to do all 5, that would be fine. That'd be good. Then you would do a graph. I would recommend just a bar graph. Would be fine. You could do a line graph if you want, but really I think just a bar graph would be fine. And you can set that, I believe, up here in the settings. All right. Both off the thing. Let's do that up here and see what it does. There we go. All right. I would just set it on bar graph and have it do that. Okay. All right. Then you would tell, how do you think the mass affected the period of the pendulum? Okay. And you could say, did changing it or did it take about the same length of time no matter what? Okay. All right. Then you're going to do one about the pendulum length. All right. And so you would go up here for pendulum length. You're just going to set length all right, as your independent variable. Okay, and it will preset these over here. Don't forget to click them. Okay, and then you can pick 3 to 5 of these different lengths. And this time you'd have to use the ruler up here to measure it. Okay, you would have to click on your ruler and use that to measure it. And same thing, put the length and the time of each period down. And then finally you would do the same thing for the third one. You would go back up and you're going to do the release angle. That will be your independent variable. You can click on the other two just so they stay the same, and then click on somewhere at the beginning, somewhere at the shorter length and the longer length, and somewhere in the middle. At least 3, I would say. Maybe 5 would be good. All right, and load that and do that. For that one, you will need to use the protractor to measure the angle. So your degrees would be your units. How many degrees is it lifted up from the center? And then, of course, how long does it take for the periods? And for each of those, you're going to summarize how they affect the period of the pendulum. All right. And I think that's it. So that should pretty well do it. Hope you enjoy that, and hopefully you will find this helpful.